take your time, but also set a time frame. I'm pretty good at accomplishing my goals when I have a deadline. That's a thing for some people where they only work harder when they know there's a deadline.
Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of Writing Inspirations with Markee Books. I'm your host Dan Ricoveri, and here we have our new guest, Nancy Phillip. Hello Nancy, how are you feeling today?
Hello, I'm doing good.
Happy to have you here. So Nancy, you are a counselor other than being a writer?
Yes, I am. I'm a Christian women's counselor.
You studied clinical psychology?
Right. I'm actually still in school for my doctorate. I'll be receiving my doctoral degree next summer. But I've already completed my master's in clinical psychology, forensic psychology.
That's quite impressive.
Mhm.
So tell me, what made you do the jump to try to become a writer?
Well, this goes back to this falls on my faith as well. Several years ago, I was a stay-at-home mom, meaning my husband was working, I was here at home with the kids, and I had already obtained my master's degree. And I was thinking, like, what am I doing with my degree? I need to get out there and start working again. So before I went back out into the workforce, I had to make a decision if what were we going to do with the kids? Because I had two small kids at the time. So I kind of did a little digging online and researching. And at this time, I had not come to my faith yet. I said, maybe I can be a life coach. It's kind of like a counselor, but it's still in that ballpark of counseling and helping others. And I could use my degree. So that's what I did. I started up my own life coaching business working from home, where I was working with couples, married couples, men, women, children. I was just doing it all. The further I got into working with these clients, I started seeing that a lot of our sessions were kind of going towards the psychology, even though it was going towards mental health, I should say. And that was like a wake-up call for me, saying that I needed to go back to school. So at that time, I had not gone back to school, but during that time, I did start growing closer to God. I found myself praying more. The more I prayed, then the more I started opening my Bible. And then I was hearing that although this is my calling, I need now to work with just women. Some people will say that's just their inner thoughts, but I truly believe that I was called to help women. So I kind of switched up my niche to women, and I kept getting Christian women, which I found odd because I'm like, okay, is that a message for me? Women that were seeking my help were Christian. So the more and more I started seeing them, the more I said, maybe this is where I'm supposed to be going, is helping women from a biblical perspective. And then I had this one client that I will never forget. It was a man, and this is at the time when I was seeing married couples, that said, he asked me, he said, "Are you a Christian?" And I said, "Yeah." "Why do you ask?" He said, "Well, nowhere on your website does it demonstrate that you're a Christian." He's like, "I'm not really a Christian, but I just had that thought process. Like, why are you not, saying that you're a Christian?" And it kind of stuck with me. It stayed with me for a while. And then I said, okay, this is definitely a calling and an awakening that I'm not doing what I'm called to do. So I immediately switched everything up. So during all this, I'm here to write a book because I kept seeing a pattern with women that I was seeing where they were married and they were either in their faith and their husband wasn't, or the husband was in the faith and they weren't. And there was a lot of issues in the marriage. So I said, I want to write about this. So I started doing like little blogging, but it wasn't enough for me. So I sat down and I wrote a book, and I never thought I would do it because I know in the past, I'm like, I don't like writing. And I sat down and I just put my thoughts into words and I put it together. And I just, it happened really fast. It happened last December is when I wrote the book. And I didn't want to go big with a big publishing company at the time because I was still new and I wasn't sure if I was doing it right. So I did self-publishing on my own. And here I am today.
Wow. How long did it take to make the book?
Oh, about a month. It's 75 pages. It's not long. It's my first book. I'm actually working on my second one. But it's not that long, but it took me about a month, the month of December. I want to say somewhere end of November into December.
Yeah, I think self-help usually it's short.
Yeah.
When did all this experience happen? Like 2 years ago?
Mm-hmm. Yes. Just about I'd say about 2 years. 3 years, about 3 years ago.
Oh, pandemic.
Yes. Yes. A lot of people got creative during the pandemic, right? Yes.
Yeah. About what you say about the couples, I have seen that too. Usually people think that
Mhm.
just respecting the boundaries of the opinions of both if enough. But
Right.
at some point, they're going to crash and it's going to be ugly.
Right. And especially if you have children, because how do you raise your kids?
Yeah, because
Yeah.
they're going to ask, I want them to be Mormon. No, I want them to be Christian. I want them to be Jewish. I want them to be Catholic. Yeah, it
Yeah.
happens
Yeah.
all the time. I see what inspired you to give it a try to be a writer. So you already moved your business to counseling women only, right?
Right. Right. It's women, but I also am open to adolescents because I have had some mothers that will say, my son or my daughter, and my background is in child psychology. So I'm open to children as well. But my focus is women. Yes.
Okay. So did you try children like girls,
Yeah.
teens?
Yeah. I actually, when I was living in New Jersey, I live in Maryland now. When I lived in New Jersey several years ago, I started up a mentoring program for young girls, for teenagers. And it was nonprofit. It was just a little thing we did. We used to meet at the church. The local church had space. So I rented out the space and we just met once a week. So I may revisit that at some time. I'm so busy right now, but I may revisit that. I do like working with children too.
When you started putting your hands on the computer and writing your book, what's the most difficult thing you struggle with?
Starting, I was like, where do I start? And then also I married. So I know I had to share some of my experiences because, I was unequally yoked as well. That's the name of the book. Is what do I share? What do I not share? Will my husband be comfortable with this? So I struggle with that when I was writing the book is, how do I write it in a way where I'm honoring my marriage and I'm not just kind of putting all my business out there. So that was one of my struggles along with starting, like how to get started.
Did you talk to your husband about it?
Oh yeah, he's very supportive. He's very supportive. He's like, what he's always had that. If that's what makes you happy, or if that's what you want to do. He's been
Uh,
very supportive of me. He's never, stopped me from pursuing my dreams. And if he can help in any way, he helps. Sometimes I've asked him like, does this word make sense, or does this sentence make sense? So he's pretty good at that.
did you feel that you changed it yourself after you finished your book?
Yeah, after reflecting on it, going back and looking at it, yeah, I definitely did from start to end. Even though the book is not extremely long, I can still see the difference from when I started till when I finished.
Do you have like favorite authors like you got inspired from?
No, I actually don't. Somebody asked me that. I don't. I read a lot of books and just different, genres and different categories, but I don't have a specific author. Maybe that's coming soon.
No,
Yeah.
I do understand that. It
Yeah.
happens to me too.
Yeah.
So tell me, for like a new writer, do you have like an advice that you will say to them?
Thinking back during the process, and I even tell the women that I counsel this, journaling, I say journaling, but writing your thoughts is really good. Because I had a journal with me. Like, I could be out with the kids or out running errands or just out somewhere and I might get a thought. And sometimes I'll use my phone use the note section of my phone, but I was writing a lot outside of writing the book, taking a lot of notes and take your time. I mean, if I were to tell somebody to take your time, but also set a time frame. I'm pretty good at accomplishing my goals when I have a deadline. It's a thing. I learned that that's a thing for some people where they only work harder when they know there's a deadline. And that's something that I encourage people to do as well. Like I said, okay, this book is going to be done by December 15th. For example, I know if it's already November 20th, I have so many days to finish the book. I work harder. So set a goal, create a goal, and then also use your journal and do a lot of writing. But yeah, those two things I would say for a new writer.
And that's great. I noticed that your book has a very long name. Do you have like a story how you came to that name?
Unequally Yoked in the Shadows of Faith. I don't know if it's backwards on here, but unequally yoked is obvious. You have a man and a woman and they're walking in two different directions when it comes to their faith. But in the shadows of faith, that part of the title to me, faith is having faith in God to restore your marriage or to heal your marriage or to fix your marriage is important. If you're unequally yoked, you're going to have some type of trust or faith if you're praying. Because most people, when they realize they come to terms that they are unequally yoked with their spouse, they turn to God and they pray. So faith is very important in the shadows of faith. A lot of people kind of say I have faith, but they really, they don't understand how it works when you have faith and when you have trust. So that's where I came up with that. So
Can you tell us a bit about your book?
So the way I have the book, it's almost like you said, it's almost like a guide. It's short chapters, 8 short chapters. And in each chapter, I start off the chapter with scripture to back up what I'm saying. That's something that's very important when you're teaching someone about what God is calling you to do in marriage. If you're going to say God calls for us to be equally yoked, well, where does it say that? So I try to make sure that anything that I say in here. So we start off each chapter with scripture, and that also will lead, especially someone that's a Christian, to open their Bibles and read. And the book is basically it's talking about the journey, from beginning to end. It's speaking of, how you get married, you're in love, and you don't seek God. You're not really concerned about whether that person is, like you said, Baptist, Catholic. As long as they believe in something, it's not really your concern, or it's not a priority. But as you go on that journey of marriage, you start learning different things. And it always, I see it happen more often than not, that one person starts questioning, there's a higher being. I believe in God. I want to start going to church. I want to raise up the children a certain way, especially when there's children involved. And then the other one is still on their own path. So the book kind of starts the beginning of a journey, and it ends with, what do you do when you get to that point where you're like, we're not equally yoked? What do we do? So that's basically how it starts off, and that's how it ends. And it gives some tips on what to do and how to pray.
Yeah, it's actually like that usually.
Right. And everybody has trials, and I discuss a few of the trials that I had, or, some of the struggles that I had in the beginning of my marriage, or even when I found my faith. I've always been a Christian. I was raised that way. I was raised Catholic. So I always had faith, and I always believed in God. It was never a point where I didn't believe, but I wasn't living my life according to the way God calls us to live, especially me as a wife. Wives are called to live a certain way. And this book also teaches you how to pray for your husband, the way that God calls us to pray for our husbands.
I think I do remember that the way wives get to their husbands is by their example, if I remember correctly.
Yes. You are absolutely right. I may touch on that a little bit in here too. And my next book will touch on that. Our example, we have to be that light. We have to be an example. So you want for your husband to say, go to church with you or to pray with you. You don't force him. You don't say, if you don't go to church, this is what's going to happen. And every one of us as women, we've been down that road where we're like, why are you not going to church? We start questioning, and we actually start nagging. But we demonstrate what we want from them. So if I want my husband to go to church, or I want my husband to pray, or to read scripture with me and the kids and lead the family, because men are called to lead, then I have to demonstrate that. I have to show. And then I also have to remember to show grace and love my husband and respect my husband and allow him to lead in the way that he's leading, and continue to pray in my secret place. That's what it says. Pray in your secret place. Meaning I don't have to stand in the middle of the living room and just shout out, God changed my husband, or, he's living in sin, or just pray out loud. I have to pray in private, and then just be kind to him and loving to him and accepting, and just let things fall the way that they do. And God will hear my prayers. So yes.
I think the boundary there is when, if the husband or wife, it's not directly against God's way.
Right.
If that's the case, then it's just as you say. Actually, I do know a couple that struggle with that. It was 35 years till he came around.
That's why my next book is called The Wait.
She waited a lot. Her 2 children actually followed her ways, and they were raised on Christianity. The husband came around like 4 years ago. And they were married like 35 years.
Right.
It was amazing. Everyone was so happy
beautiful.
For her.
Yeah, it's beautiful. And the waiting period, that's why I said I got to write a book about the wait, because even though Unequally Yoked, and it's odd that I wrote the Unequally Yoked first and the wait is coming next, because I was like, God, shouldn't I have written the wait first? But no, that's the way it has to be. The wait is going to be speaking about what you said, is what are you doing during that time that you're waiting? Are you thanking God in advance forsaking your husband because that's what he's going to do. God is not going to deny a prayer for someone to ask for someone's salvation. Are you complaining the whole time, gossiping, calling your mom and your sister and, oh, you know what my husband did? Are you nagging him? What are you doing during that time that you're waiting? And sometimes we're not doing the right thing. And that's why it takes so long. That's why it's so extended, because God might be saying, hey, I need your attention first before your husband. As women, I learned that as a woman, I need to have my relationship with God before my husband does, because how can I not have a relationship with God or be living in obedience, but I expect for my husband to be doing that? So that's kind of, we touch on that in the book as well, is what are you doing while you're waiting? You don't want to extend. Do you know about the story in the Bible about the Israelites? Have you ever heard that story? There's a story about the Israelites, how they wandered for 40 years.
Oh,
They
right.
couldn't
Yeah.
get in. Yeah,
That's
they couldn't.
that's
Yeah,
about Moses.
right. They couldn't get into the promised land. But you know what they did the whole time they were wandering? They were complaining the whole time. So I always think of that story is, what am I doing during the time, that I'm waiting for my husband, or these women that I am writing to, is what are you doing? Are you praying and just having faith and believing that it's going to happen, or are you complaining the whole time? So, yeah,
Yeah, the struggle is real.
it
I
is.
do understand that it's probably hurts a lot to see the disparities and the discussions,
Uh,
but I do believe that if the guy is not really forcing anything on the
mhm.
wife, you should be patient. That's what
Yes.
happened to that woman. The husband let her do what
Hmm.
she wanted,
Hmm.
and he just stayed away.
Yeah.
It's not the best situation,
Right.
but if that's what you are able to do at the start, I think
Hmm.
that's like a great step and put you in a position a lot better than most.
Yes.
So tell me, do you have like plans for the future apart from the other book?
Yes, I do. I actually started a small women's ministry. It's under the umbrella of my business of counseling. Once I'm pursuing my doctorate, so I'll become Dr. Phillips next summer. But I started a small women's ministry, and I'm basically just teaching not just about marriage and how to be in marriage, but also reminding them that they have to have a relationship with God as well. It's ministry for women. And then also, my book is supposed to be a 3-part series. I've had this one, Unequally Yoked in the Shadows of Faith. My next book, my goal is to finish it by the end of this month. It's called The Wait. And there'll be a third book. I'm still working on the title. So there'll be a third book. My book right now is being reviewed by a Christian bookstore in Glen Burnie, Maryland. And I'm just waiting on the owner to wrap up reading. And once she finishes reading, I have the confidence that it will be on the shelf in that bookstore. Right now, the book is on Amazon. I have it, it's been on Amazon since last December. And I also have it up on my website.
Actually, I do have a question I forgot to ask. You
Oh,
mentioned that you're studying criminal psychology?
no, clinical,
Clinical. Okay.
clinical. Yeah. Clinical
Yeah,
psychology.
for a moment I got confused with that. So, how do you plan to use this knowledge on the
Right.
future?
I will be a clinical psychologist, but I will do it from the Christian perspective. So, I have my beliefs, and I plan on helping women. Same thing that I'm doing right now. I'm currently doing. The only difference will be I will have a title, as a doctor. But I do plan on spreading and spreading my word, but also combining mental health and Christianity. I want to combine the two. That's my future.
Okay. Do you
Yeah.
have platforms where people can get your book?
Yes. Amazon. I have a website. I don't know if you want me to share the website, but I have the website and I have Amazon right now. Those are the two platforms that it's being sold on.
Okay. Can you tell us the name of the website?
Sure. It is Life Hacks with Nancy. That is the name, that the title or the name of my business that I started back years ago when I started life coaching. So the name will change within the next year. It's going to be Christian Solutions. So right now it's www.lifehackswithnancy.org. I have a whole page dedicated to the book, and also anointing oil. I have the website dedicated. And Amazon, of course, if you search Unequally Yoked in the Shadows of Faith, I'll pop right up.
Yeah, it's a very specific name. I noticed it too when I did my research.
Yes, yes, a unique name.
Are you planning to go to an event or something soon to sell your book?
I'm actually looking. If I know once the bookstore approves my book, I'll do a book signing there. And I'll make sure I have that posted up on my website of that future event. But I am actually actively looking to promote my book in the area. So once I find that too, I'll promote that on my website.
Well, Nancy, so great to have you today. Thank you for accompanying us.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for coming to another episode of Writing Inspiration with Markee Books. Bye. Thank you.
Bye.